Hello and welcome to the Buckets and Tea NBA show. I'm your host, Cathryn Naiker. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode. Today, joining me, you know him, you love him. It's Vivek Jacob. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. They know me. I don't know if they love me, but I'll take it.
They do. They do. Whether or not they love me is the one that's truly debatable, but they definitely love you.
Oh man.
Good to have you back on the show. We had last time you were here, you were covering cricket at like 4 a.m. You're back to regular hours, getting ready for the holiday season upon us. Do you have any fun plans, anything like that?
So 24th doing dinner with family, and 25th, my brother and I are just gonna sit back and enjoy the games.
Oh, that's so nice. You know what? I wonder if anyone else out there is like this, but my family they're not basketball people. Like they're casuals, you know what I mean? Like they're casual basketball people, but they're not like, they're not sickos like we are.
Yeah.
But like, so I can't really watch the Christmas Day games because they don't want to watch Christmas Day games.
Right.
And I feel like I'm like the Homer Simpson of my family. Like I just want to sit and watch TV. I don't want to do anything. And they're like, we should, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just want to eat and watch basketball is my point.
Yeah.
But I don't get to do that.
Yeah. No, that's definitely a big perk with my brother because my parents are in India. So I just messaged him. I was like, hey, did you want to make Christmas plans? And he was like, do you want to watch the games? And I was like, yes. Okay. Plans are set.
That's perfect. Yeah. My brother has an 8-month-old. And but his partner is like going to Montreal because her family's in Montreal. So we're having Christmas with my nephew on the 23rd, which is like a first for us. He's not going to remember anything, but I bought him a dancing cactus, which I really am excited for. I just want to see my nephew with a dancing cactus. And then my mom and I are just going to hang out on like Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And then my brother's going to join us again later. We're very chill with Christmas. We go to the movies.
Amazing.
Yeah. I don't know what movie we're going to see this year though. Knowing my mom, it'll end up being The Color Purple, but it's fine.
I went for Godzilla -1. That was really good.
I hear it's really good. My mom would never. She would never watch Godzilla.
Well, the good thing is it's made like a movie. There's an actual storyline. It's not just Godzilla doing crazy stuff.
I love a real storyline.
That's as far as I'll go with the spoilers.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's get into some basketball talk here.
That's what the people came for.
That's what they came for, not our personal lives. But anyway.
I mean, had Jokic looking like Godzilla -1 last night.
Oh, and Embiid.
Yeah.
Didn't Embiid have like 50 last night?
And I think he might have sat out the fourth quarter too, or again.
Oh wow, that's wild. You know what? Like this isn't on our docket, but I really feel like Embiid is having that like almost like remember when Steph Curry won MVP and then people were like really, really debating it, and then he came back and had an even better season.
Yeah,
the following year, like that is like the level that Embiid is at right now.
He's crazy. I do. So I thought last night's win was a big one because obviously playing the Wolves, who have been great this season. I think I've kind of been waiting on like the bigger games because if you look at the standings, they are like 13-1 against sub 500 teams.
Right.
But 6-7 against plus 500 teams.
Okay.
So it's like they've really been beating up on the bad teams. And so that was a good win for them against Minnesota. But, even with all the winning that Minnesota is doing, I don't know if people are ready to give them that kind of respect until they see it in the playoffs.
Yeah, but I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, Minnesota is better than I thought they would be this year, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I think they've surprised a lot of people, but yeah, I mean, they haven't been out of the first round. So, I mean, we were like that with the Nuggets.
Yeah, I think with the Nuggets, I thought it was just unfair to Jokic because people were just like, "Oh, how good is he really?"
1,000%.
When he was like going into the playoffs without Jamal, without Michael Porter Jr., he had no help. And it's like, oh, you got swept by the Warriors. You're not that good. But it's like,
Mhm,
man, this
mhm.
guy's doing everything by himself. And then lo and behold, Jamal is healthy and they get it done.
Yeah. So true. So true. And, what's his name? Michael Porter Jr. as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
exactly.
he was, like, out for, like, a year with, like,
Yeah.
back stuff.
Yeah. And then obviously Aaron Gordon since the trade has just been amazing for them.
Mhm.
So
Um, okay. Biggest story this week is Ja Morant's return. And, he had an awesome return. I think he scored 35 with the game-winning shot, against the Pelicans. Um, several things with Ja, right? Like, he, obviously, he had that 25-game suspension because of the video with him and guns. He's also been in court, and there's these kind of funny videos that have been going viral of him just explaining, like, what a bounce pass is versus, like, a chest
checking a
pass.
ball. Yeah.
Yeah, checking a ball in court, like, with his lawyer and stuff.
Yeah.
So, I was reading about this case, and I'm like, "I can't believe this went to trial." Because so essentially what happened was in summer 2022, Ja Morant he's playing a pickup game at his like home basketball court. Things get a little testy and he punches this teenager in the face. And now the teenager's suing him. And he's gone to court because there's a law in Tennessee that says if you feel threatened on your property, you can defend yourself. And he's trying to say that this chest pass that the teenager threw at him was threatening.
Yeah.
Come on. Just give the kid some money and move on with your life.
Yeah.
You punched him.
Yeah.
Come on. He's I mean, like, I don't know how big or small this teenager is,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. What if he's like Wembenyama?
I'm done. I'm not a lawyer. What if the teenager is 7'5"?
Yeah.
Okay, fair. Now we have a case. Now we have a case. It's just really bizarre to me because you never see these things actually end up in court, but not totally behind him yet. There hasn't been an official ruling. I don't know if he's going to be back in court or not. Stay tuned for that. But with this comeback, I mean, suddenly this team looks like they've completely 180'd with the return of Ja. I mean, I know it's only been one game, but do we feel like they can make like a solid run here? Like, where do we feel like this team is at now?
So I think they can be a good team. I think they can potentially, try to get back in that play-in mix because realistically, the play-in, you probably, the 10th spot, ninth spot, you're probably looking to be around 500, a couple games over 500. That might get you into the play-in. So, at 7 and 19, obviously, they're going to need a pretty big turnaround. I think Ja is capable of that type of turnaround. I just don't think they're anywhere close to being a championship contender, uh, or like capable of making a deep playoff run just because Steven Adams was so important to them. Brandon Clark
Mhm.
was so important to them. Dylan Brooks was important to them, and they never really replaced that. And obviously, he's thriving in Houston. So uh, we'll see, what it looks like when Marcus Smart gets back too. But I do think that their best case scenario is being like a 500 team. And so I don't know. It might even get to a situation where, say if they're like 7, 8 games under 500 come, you know,
Like the
the
All-Star
All-Star
break.
break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you kind of maybe just pull the plug and say, you know what, this year is not going to happen for us. Our depth isn't quite there. Maybe we just get a decent pick and reload for next year.
I completely agree. I think this is a transition year for the Grizzlies. It was nice to see Ja being, the old Ja Morant, the electrifying player that we love. But yeah, they gotta. They got to tank this year. I absolutely agree. They should tank this year. Just, just a one-time tank like we did for Scotty Barnes, Just
Yeah.
a one-time tank, and then run it back next year. The whole Dylan Brooks thing was so insane when it happened. Like, I've never seen a team release a statement being like, we're not bringing this player back.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just trade him? Like, that's the whole thing I never understood. Like, if things were that bad and you knew you weren't going to try and re-sign him in free agency, why not trade him?
And it's amazing that teams can put out a statement like that over a guy that, they just saw as not fitting on their team anymore.
It's not like he did
But
anything
can't
like
do the same.
illegal. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. But can't do the same when it's someone facing, serious, criminal charges or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No worries. So yeah, I think they miss him. I thought it was amazing for Dylan to hit the shot against them and win the game. That would have felt obviously just amazing for him. And yeah, it's crazy. You look at the standings now, the Rockets are competitive. They're a 500 team. And the Grizzlies are hoping to be that now.
Yeah. Yeah. So wild. I loved the Rockets logo in his hair. That was so perfect. Yeah, really happy for Ja. I really hope he can stay out of trouble going forward. I mean, sometimes I feel like we forget, like, he's like really young, like he's like in his early 20s. I feel like he's made some mistakes. I am in that camp where I feel like he's made some mistakes and he can recover from this. Also, like, America has such a like strange gun culture that I just don't understand.
Yep.
So, that's a whole thing too, where I'm kind of like, oh, I'm like, to the point where I was like shocked that it was such a bad look
Right.
for the NBA, because I'm like, this whole country loves guns. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's the fact that it was like the second transgression, if you want to call it that. I think he needed the time. I think
he did. I agree. He absolutely needed.
I think
he
needed the time, and I think it's a good reminder of realizing what's most important. And so hopefully, that's just a lesson that he needed and has learned from, and we can just enjoy everything that he does on the basketball court, because he is pretty damn amazing to watch.
Yeah, completely agree. I really hope all of it's behind him.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the latest reportedly unhappy NBA star, and that is Donovan Mitchell. Rumors swirling around the Cavs now that they have, those really bad injuries with Evan Mobley and
Darius Garland.
Thank you. Yeah, I was like blanking on his name. That Donovan Mitchell's not going to stay. He's a free agent this year, blah blah blah. I feel like they just got him. Like my whole thing on this is that, like, I feel like people are just so eager to like watch things burn, and they want to blow things up all the time, and I think it's getting really annoying. Actually, this is just my perspective as a fan. I feel like, to me, if you're the Cavs, sure, make a move at the deadline, but try and, show Donovan Mitchell that you want to win. You know what I mean? Like, why not?
I mean, I thought they showed that by getting him in the first place.
Right. Like, this is like not a bad team. They're kind of struggling right now. They believe they won last night, or they won recently. And I just feel like, why wouldn't you double down on this?
Yeah, no,
you know what I mean?
I completely agree. And, he's under contract for next season as well. So they really don't need to.
He is. My apologies then.
Yeah. No.
I thought all this talk was happening because he's a free agent.
No, they're kind of.
Oh God, that's
just saying. Oh, they need to jump the gun and just get ahead of things.
Oh, that's so panicky.
Max value for him and that type of thing. But yeah, I kind of say, hey, why not just like ride this out where, once Garland comes back, once Mobley comes back, you'll still be a pretty good team. I think people still see the ceiling as being a first round exit. which, it might be accurate because, you don't see them beating Boston or Milwaukee or Philly. Maybe if they played in Orlando, they'd like their chances. But I think the summer is probably the time to evaluate that. And, still having a full year on his deal, then you can see, okay, is it time to move on? Is it time to, find some different pieces? And then, I think the other thing that kind of has accelerated this kind of talk is Evan Mobley not necessarily taking the offensive steps that people hope for, right? Like everyone views him as this amazing defensive player, all defensive team candidate, defensive player of the year, one day possibly. And so the offense has to come good with him too, and I don't think he's made the strides there that's needed. So, and I think they still need to figure out the whole Jared Allen, Evan Mobley thing, right? Is that the best long-term option? Do they need, and the biggest thing they need is a wing defender, a wing scorer, like, not to throw it out there, but
OG like an OG Anunoby. Everyone needs OG Anunoby.
Everyone does. Everyone really does. And so it's nice that the Raptors have him. Too bad they can't win any games.
It's true. It's true. Everyone needs OG, including us. And I look, I agree. I feel like we're pushing the panic button on this way too early. They've only had Donovan Mitchell for a full season, and then now this year. I mean, last year, January, he scored 70 points.
Yeah.
Didn't he have like 71 points or something in a game? Yeah. Come on, man. Like, just give it some time. I just feel like everybody's in a rush, and I get it. But the panic, I feel, from fans with certain teams, it just happens too quickly. Like Raptors kind of like frustration and panic, I understand, certainly at this point. The Atlanta Hawks, I get it. But this Cavs team hasn't been together long enough.
No, I agree. And again, like part of it is just going to be the growth process, right? Like Evan Mobley, at the end of the day, we can talk about his offensive shortcomings, but he's 22 years old. He's the same age as Scottie Barnes. Like, just because, maybe, you look at the way Scottie is doing and you're thinking, oh, this is a disappointment. Like, no, just bigs in general take more time to develop, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think in terms of a Raptors example, Jonas Valanciunas was like a prime example of that, right? Like, it took him some time. Obviously, his staples were his rebounding and whatnot, but then they were also like trying to turn him into a different player, right? Like first they were like, oh, we want you to be a bruiser inside. Then the league was changing. It was like, okay, we want you to be able to shoot. And so like take more jumpers and this and that. And then now he's just all in on like, I am just going to get in there and beat the crap out of guys. And this is what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
He'll knock down the odd three, but he knows where his bread and butter is now.
Yeah, I think too, we need to give younger players in the league just like a little more time because like, for example, from the same draft class, Cade Cunningham keeps getting criticized for like not being able to handle the ball well. I think, he turns over the ball a lot, but he also scores over 20 points and has at least 5 assists. So it's like, and he's also on a really bad team and he was injured for like almost all of last year. And it's like, can we give this guy a break? Like, maybe he's just forced to do too much on a really bad team. Like, I don't know why people are like writing this guy off. I'm like, he's actually like a really good player. I don't know.
Yeah. And like good, like organizational leadership really, really matters. Right. And I think when you look back, even with the trust the process Sixers, like those first initial years, they were just like, oh, we're going to be really, really bad. And nothing else matters, and you never had like vets around Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons or whatever, and you saw like there were other guys that were impacted by it too, right? And I think who's the big that they drafted? I forget his name now, but I think they've had bad situations play out because they didn't have any veteran presence, and so I think that balance that you need to strike in building a team up, even if you're going to be bad, isn't there. And so I think Jalen Green is a good example where this is the first time he has leaders like Fred VanVleet and
Yeah.
Dylan Brooks. And if you look at the situation before that, like, go ahead, go take all the bad shots you want. And now they're slowly trying to like cut that out of his game, right? And I think now they're on a path where even a coach like Ime Udoka is going to be direct, right? Like, that's a bad shot, you know? And I think there will now, like, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel for him in terms of like, hey, okay, if they cut this out, they cut that out, he'll get there, right? But if you watched last year, it was like he can do whatever he wants. No one cares. I think Kevin Porter Jr. was on that team. It was like he could do whatever he wants. No one cares. You got this guy Jabari Smith Jr. who's trying to develop. No one cares. You know. So
yeah,
I think all that stuff plays into it.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, another thing I want to ask you about. So at the start of the season, you were on the pod and we talked about, the in-season tournament and what it could look like and what we think, its impact would be, blah, blah, blah. Now that it's over, we got to talk about this banner.
Jahlil Okafor. That it was bugging me. I was like, that's the Philly big who like just completely lost his way.
Got it. Thank you. I also wasn't sure who you were referring to. I was like, love that for us and the listeners, most importantly.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we got to talk about this banner. This banner went up in LA this week to tepid applause and chagrin from LeBron James. Listen, when the in-season tournament was happening, I liked it. Didn't like the courts per se, but I liked it. And I liked the moment in Vegas, I liked that LA one. I liked the little medals that they got. And then the second they started spraying champagne on each other, I was like, I'm out. Because now we have, instead of, making the regular season more important, we have made championship celebrations less important. Champagne in the locker room should be more sacred than this.
Should it?
Yes. And so should a banner. I think the banner is so stupid.
But I think what I'm okay with is they said it's like gonna be one banner, and like the more you win, they're just gonna tack on the years. Like, when you go to Scotiabank Arena, they have like the division banner, and it just has like all the years that they've won it.
But that's a bigger accomplishment.
Is it?
Winning your division, having the best record in your division, that takes 82 games to achieve.
Yeah, but I mean, I think with a knockout competition, I get it's only 7 games, but the FIFA World Cup is 7 games.
That's completely different. That's the World Cup.
I think
also there's other games that determine like your rankings and like,
Yeah. No, I think it is important to give it importance, or else it's just gonna like, what are we really playing for? I actually didn't like that they played the semifinals and finals in Vegas. Like, I thought they lost something like that home court effect that was there in the quarterfinals, where you had the home team like really cheering. Like, I thought that was lost. And I think especially like in a knockout tournament, I think you should have some way of determining who has home court for the semis and the finals. And I think that would make it more fun. Maybe, when the league expands to 32 teams, they can make it more like World Cup style. And the one thing I would like to see is, I didn't like that the groups had a very like divisional look, in that, it was separated by conference. And so obviously I get there's a lot of logistics that went into it, but I think to really, build some more excitement in the group phase. I think the groups should be inter-conference. Like I think there
Right.
should be a healthy mix of West and East teams, and then it's like, oh wow, the the Raptors are grouped with the Suns or the Warriors or whoever, right? And I think that builds some added excitement to it too.
I like that idea. I think I agree with you on the Vegas part, and I think for all this talk about Vegas expansion, they did themselves no favors because that crowd was not into it the way any other NBA city crowd would be. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like they just, and I get that they don't have a home team, but I was like, are these even basketball fans, or are these just like tourists who thought it'd be funny to go to a game or something? Like, you know what I mean? Like I was just
yeah,
like, who are these people? Like I was really like not super into the Vegas expansion. Like definitely I'm pro Seattle first at this point.
yeah.
Before Vegas, because that was really a lackluster crowd. I felt like it kind of took some excitement out of the game itself, because you want these games to have that playoff like atmosphere. And I just felt like it during the very finals, the Lakers one kind of had that because they were able to get enough Lakers fans. And you talk about which fan bases like travel and which fan bases don't travel. Like Lakers fans travel, right? But also just like geographically, like the proximity between LA and Vegas is so much closer, so there's that too. But Lakers fans are everywhere, where like Indiana Pacers fans not so much. But maybe it should be like, the All-Star game, where like the tournament gets hosted in a different city every year.
Yeah, I could get behind that. That might be cool.
You know what I mean? Like it would be cool if like, we hosted one year, and then, yeah, I think, because at least then you have like an NBA audience.
Right.
But I am firmly against the champagne celebration. I'm firmly against the banner. I don't care. I do think a division title is a much larger accomplishment than this.
Yeah.
The in-season tournament, I don't want to always be so cynical, but it is fake hype. It doesn't actually mean anything. I I kind of don't care about the $500,000
But does
for
it
these
not
players.
mean that much because it's just started? Like, does it not need history?
No. In my opinion, no. What I think would make this mean something is if, let's say, the winner of the in-season tournament gets home court advantage no matter where they place in the playoffs. And then if for some reason you don't place in the playoffs, then you just lose that advantage. That to me would be huge. So like for the Lakers, let's say, at the end of the season, they're 5th in the West. They'll have home court because they won the in-season tournament.
So would you say home court throughout the playoffs or just the first round?
I would say throughout the playoffs, because to
Whoa.
me, that is like, that's really, really worth something. Like
Right.
now the in-season tournament would really matter, because now there's like huge consequences for it.
Yeah.
Now
But
people would be like, oh, this isn't fair, blah, 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 blah. But I like
that goes back to your initial point about, well, it's just 7 games to determine that, right? I mean, well, what was it, 6 games?
that's fair. It could be longer.
Yeah.
It could be longer.
Yeah,
Okay, maybe just for the first round.
I could potentially get behind the first round if they make the playoffs, where it's like, okay, um if you're in the top 6, like, so if you're 5 or 6, then you will have home court for that first round. If you make it through the play-in, I think that would be cool. Where it's like, oh wow, this team made it through the play-in. Now they're the 8 seed going up against the 1 seed, and now they have home court.
Yeah. Right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I just feel like, as a fan, it's like, congratulations, you have $500,000. I'm not like, I don't care.
yeah, yeah. No, I
Like,
could get behind it for
I
the first
just
round.
don't care how much players make. I know there's players at the end of the bench who make less, and like 500,000 is like a significant amount of money for them, and that's great. but it's like, but I'm just not, you know what I mean? I'm just not invested in that as a fan.
It's apparently just vacation money for D'Angelo Russell, just a 1 week vacation.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, he was like, what is the 500K mean? He was like, well, takes care of my all-star break vacation. And I was like, all right.
Wow.
It's just, they're just in a
Wow.
different stratosphere.
Yeah, I can't even imagine spending that amount of money in a week. Okay, sure. Okay, private jet, private yacht, chef.
Private and personal, everything.
Basically.
Yeah.
Basically. Oh my god. All right. Anyways, I just had to revisit that topic with you, and then I had to talk about this banner because I had a visceral reaction against it. And so did LeBron James, okay? Even if he says, you know, it's all cool and blah blah blah, you can see, if you look back at the clip, you see the expression on his face. He is not about that life. He's like looking around, like, can I get like, you know, pretending to look at his watch, so to speak, like, when can I get out of here? He's like, is this done? Cool. And like runs to the bench. He wanted no part of this. No part of this. And I'm pretty sure the Lakers didn't want any part of it either, but the league just made them do it. Because they were all like, we only hang championship banners, blah, blah, blah. Now they're like, I guess not.
Yeah, no, it was definitely like a league thing. Like, again, it's part of their mission to make it feel important.
Right. You just said it right there. Make it feel important.
Yeah, but that's the effort you
as
have
opposed to
make
it
right now.
actually being important.
Like, I guess I just think about it from a soccer perspective, where they have the league format, right? And at some point, someone would have introduced, like in England, the league is the Premier League. That's the biggest thing. And then there's the FA Cup. That first year they introduced the FA Cup, I don't know how many people would have cared, right? But now it has like over 100 years of tradition and whatnot. Like, who knows? You know, that first NBA season where people saying, why do we have these playoffs? Why doesn't it just go like, you played all these games? Why isn't that worth something? Why do you now have to play the playoffs to get this other trophy? Like, why doesn't the trophy just go to the team that won the regular season? You know, I'm sure there are people questioning that too. So I think it's good. There's going to be aspects of it that definitely look gimmicky for the short term.
Right.
But I think it's something they have to do to make it have meaning in the long term.
Okay. I respect it. I respect it. Okay, let's move on to our Raptors Homer moment. Our Raptors, you know, we continue to struggle a bit, blah, blah, blah. Fans get restless. I feel like I'm saying the same thing every week.
Yep.
But we had a new, you know, a bit of a shakeup to our starting lineup. Like, what do you think of these adjustments that Darko's making? Do you feel like they can make a difference long term? Would you make other adjustments? Where are you at with this team?
Yeah, I've been wanting a change to the starting lineup for, I want to say, closer to 3 or 4 weeks now. And I think we've seen enough. I think, you know, the fact that we're seeing Jacob Poeltl get benched in the fourth quarter show that, you know, they don't have that much confidence in that lineup. And I'm just not understanding why the change hasn't happened yet. And I get that Darko keeps saying that, you know, he wants to give them a chance to like find their groove, and he doesn't want to make changes too quickly. But like, we're a third of the season in. Like, how much more do you need to see? And, you know, why would, say, even one good game or one hot start now change your mind on what you've seen for the 27 games, you know? And yeah, I get on some level you're making the argument that, oh, well, Gary Trent Jr. hasn't done much off the bench to like validate like taking someone's spot, but he's also been much better as a starter throughout the course of his career. right?
Mhm.
And I think he is someone that needs those open shots created by Scottie or Pascal, or and so I think the case is like set in stone at this point. It couldn't be more rock solid. So yeah, just we all want to see something different, I think. Um, and yeah, I think it's long overdue.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do feel like, sorry for YouTube audience, I'm having a Ricola because I'm battling a bit of a cold right now. But I feel like Darko in large part was hired to give these players more of a chance. Do you know what I mean? Like that's kind of what he was brought to do, because the whole criticism last year with Nurse, well, one of the criticisms with Nurse last year was that he wasn't giving these players enough chance, and he was riding the starting lineup into the ground. So, he is giving a longer leash, and like you don't want to get to a point where that ends up being like an overcorrection for last season, but also like I'm a big believer in like you got to earn your spots, you got to earn your minutes no matter what. Like doesn't matter what you get paid or blah blah blah, like always earn your minutes. And I do feel like, yeah, why not shake it up at this point? I mean, we're currently 12th in the East, which is like certainly worse than what I thought this team would be, and I wasn't necessarily predicting us to be like playoffs. I kind of thought we would be more in the play-in mix at this
Yeah, that
point
was
than we
that was the best
currently
case
are.
scenario, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, the one thing I would say is, yeah, Darko was brought in to give players more of a chance, but I think he was specifically brought in to bring to give the young players more of a chance. And so if you look at it,
Right.
Dennis Schroeder's 30, Jakob Poeltl's 28, Gary Trent Jr. is 24. So if anything, it would just be more in line with what the Raptors are trying to do this year.
Yeah, it really it makes the Jakob Poeltl trade last year feel not as good, doesn't it?
Oh, I haven't
Not
felt
that
good
I
about
ever
it.
felt good about it.
Yeah, I didn't like
Never
it.
felt good. It was always confusing. It was always a head scratcher.
So when the
Actually, that's not
deal,
true. I did feel good about it in that I was like, we finally have a center.
right?
From that perspective, I felt good about it. But otherwise, it was confusing.
Yeah, I. So when the deal went down, it happened the night before trade deadline day,
Right.
and the impression that gave me was that that was going to be the beginning of a busy trade deadline for the Raptors. I thought
Right.
I thought it was okay. Jakob Poeltl is here. You've begun like restructuring the roster, because right then it was like, okay, well, if you have Yak and Pascal and Scotty starting, like that is just not enough spacing. Like, what else is going to change here, right? That was my thinking, and so the fact that the trade deadline day went by, and nothing else happened was shocking to me. Then I was like, okay, what did you just do? Because the other thing for me was part of why I was patient with restructuring the roster was you don't want to get a center just for the sake of getting a center. And so to me, if you're going to put a center beside Pascal and Scotty, it should be a center that can space the floor.
Mhm.
Now there aren't that many of them around, but that is the position you put yourself in by having Pascal and Scotty together. And so to me, to have taken all that time without a center, and then you just go and get a traditional center as opposed to one that would have fit better alongside Scotty
Right.
and Pascal, that to me just didn't make any sense.
Right. I agree. I think that's an excellent point. I mean, I was also really confused that we traded our draft pick this year for Jakob Poeltl, because I was like, wait, don't we don't we want that pick? I mean, I know it's like top 6 protected and stuff, but I was like, wait a second, I thought we wanted that. So yeah, it's super confusing. I mean, the direction of this team or lack of direction has been confusing. And I know there's a lot of people out there that like are believers, and actually this was kind of my next question for you, was, there's a lot of people out there that are like, hey, like Scottie and Pascal Siakam can play together, and in fact they should play together, and instead of just building around Scottie, why aren't we building around both of these players?
Yeah, I think the big X factor there has been Scottie's shooting this season, right? Like one of them had to become a shooter for it to become feasible. And I think now the fact that Scottie has made such big strides with his 3-point shot, you can start to make sense of it, right? I
Right.
think uh, ideally you would still want uh, a better 3-point shooter in your point guard.
Mhm.
Ideally, you would want a center who can at least knock down, a 16 footer, an 18
Yeah.
footer, like that's the other problem with Yak. It's not that he can't even shoot threes. It's like he can't when he's operating out of the elbows, for example, um, he can't even pull up for that jumper, right? And
Right.
when you think about, say for example, Marc Gasol, right? Whether he was at the 3-point line or he was operating out of those elbows, right? Like he could always survey the floor, and then he also had the option of just being able to rise up for the shot. And that also forces defenders closer to you. It opens up passing lanes, that type of thing, right? And so I think that's what makes things so clunky with Jakob Poeltl right now. And yeah, it's just it's a bad fit outside of that. And it's like, again, I think with Scottie and Pascal together, you have to really nail everything that's around them, right?
Mhm.
And I think Jakob Poeltl is a really good player. He just has to be in the right situation,
Do you
right?
know if his shooting percentage went down? Because I thought he had a better outside shot than he currently has.
Oh no, I
I
mean,
don't have that in front of me, though.
yeah, I mean, he's never
He's
been
never been that
any
guy.
kind of a jump shooter. Um, so I think, for him, his
It's my
areas.
European bias that I thought he had.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, he's shooting 80% at the rim this season, which is fantastic. Uh, and even I think those 4 to 8 feet, like he's solid from there. He can make things happen there, but everything outside of that I think is just a challenge for him. So uh unfortunately, that's just the situation that the Raptors have put themselves in. And they backed themselves into a corner pretty much last season,
Mm,
and they just keep going further and further into that corner.
mhm.
We'll see where they land up.
Yeah. Um, are you, like are you a believer in Precious Achua? Like, do you feel like he has a lot of growth? Do you feel like his ceiling is a lot higher, or do you feel like he's kind of, he is who he is?
um I think Precious Achua is too inconsistent to see that like theoretical ceiling that we all do.
Yeah,
Uh, and I think, you know, uh, his reading of the game isn't the best. And so I think in the best case scenario, he's like a seventh, eighth man on your team, on a good team.
I
Uh,
agree.
and so, yeah, I just think there's too many mistakes. There's too many plays where he looks lost. And obviously his athleticism will take him to certain places, and that's where we kind of get teased and we get excited, and it's like, wow,
Mhm.
that was incredible. Um, but but it'll take you to a few spots, but uh, it's not going to buy you a plane ticket.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we've got, like, a lot of solid bench players in our starting lineup. I hate to say that, but it's just that's kind of the reality of the situation with this team, and I think we all are kind of, as much as we might be, like, emotionally attached to certain players, and there's certain players that, like, on this team that I love, and I'll follow them, wherever they go, so to speak.
Yeah.
but yeah, I am looking forward to shaking this up a bit.
Yeah, I think we all are.
Yeah. With that being said, let's move on to our Hottie Highlight of the week. And this was quite a confusing moment that went viral on the internet. And this is going to an OG Raptor, Alvin Williams, who had a very awkward interview during a post Raptor segment at Real Sports Bar. I'm not sure who this host is. Also, the editing in this clip is weird. Like, our assistant coach keeps like popping in and popping out of like the middle of the frame.
Oh, so I think the tweet you're talking about, they've just
Yes.
like clipped all the bad moments from the show, like
Yeah, I was
them
like,
getting
what is
heated.
going
Yeah,
on?
yeah, yeah. So it's like a 20-minute post game show that they do, and this
And you
was
can watch the full 20 minutes on YouTube.
yeah, and so this actually happened about a month ago.
Oh, really? It only
Yeah,
went viral this week.
yeah. So, um, I guess this person just happened to catch that episode and was like, "This is awkward," and then they clipped it all together. So
No one's watching this post game show then.
yeah, people have
Because
only caught on a month later.
literally,
Yeah,
like, all through Raptors Twitter, it went viral. So, like, no one's watching this show.
yeah, yeah. So the show's still going, so I assume they're cool now. But yeah, obviously.
This guy was like, "Oh, it's, like, really hard to make you laugh, blah, blah, blah." I was like, "Good lord." Alvin Williams is having none of it,
Yeah, yeah,
which I
yeah.
appreciate. You don't need to yes and anything when you feel slighted or insulted.
Yeah. So obviously super awkward, but I'd like to think that
Well, I really thought this
people
happened this week, and now I'm super disappointed. It went viral this week.
like if you look at even just the clips, like it should say the game. And then I think at the end it says next game, you know, is
Not the one that I saw.
oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then it's like, oh, next game is
Oh,
November
Vivek, what are
16th or whatever.
we gonna do? What are we gonna do with this Hottie Highlight segment?
Well, I mean, I think it shows that vibes only take you so far, and you need some wins.
It's true.
And this was kind of my question going into the season. It's like, yeah, it's great to talk about all this joy and playing with joy, and everyone's got a smile on their face and this and that, but like these are type A competitors. How many smiles are we going to see when they're like 10 and 15, or 9 and 15 as they are now, 11 and 16. There we go.
Do
So
you feel like Darko is, like, too jolly?
yeah, I mean, I think he just comes off as a bit naive at times, and it's
Mm.
like when he said the whole like dinner party for 3 wins, I was like, come on,
I
like
know. We talked about that on here quite a bit. He was
yeah,
getting really trashed for that.
yeah, and so stuff like that is a bit weird. I think even with the starting lineup change, like what are you waiting for? Like, has the front office told you they want Dennis Schroeder starting because they just gave him a mid-level exception contract? Are they saying you have to start Jakob Poeltl because they just gave up a first-round pick for him? Like, it just doesn't make sense at this point because it's been so bad, and so I think it's been a struggle, and yeah, I think he can afford to be a bit tougher on the guys. And I think on some level that kind of carries over onto the court too, where like honestly, even like the Nuggets game last night, there were times when they were going in for dunks, layups, and I was like, can you guys like contest here? Can you guys like be a little bit physical?
Yeah.
um and yeah, I think that sort of toughness, I mean, either they're not really sold on what he's selling, they're not buying what he's selling, or they feel like they can get away with it. you
Well,
know?
it's hard to buy what he's selling when you're not winning games,
Yeah.
right?
And again, going back to, is he not hard enough on them? Like maybe on some level they feel like, they can have these plays where they switch off defensively or, aren't physical enough or aggressive enough or whatever because they feel like they can just get away with it.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's like, when you were, or at least when I was in school, like Indian school teachers were pretty harsh, but then you had the ones that were pretty lenient. And so all of a sudden, you're trying to get away with a lot more. And so
That's so true.
maybe there's a bit of that right now.
Maybe. But also it's like getting away with it, but also like when you're not winning, it's harder to be motivated to do the little things.
Yeah, it's like we don't have a winning strategy. This isn't going to change anything anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I think a lot of us could relate to like not being motivated at a job.
Yeah,
And then you just kind of start slacking off on like these little things.
right.
And then cumulatively it makes a difference. But in this case, they have like millions of people watching, so it's obvious.
Yeah.
Where you at your desk job are just kind of like low key dipping to Starbucks for a while.
Yeah, there's no quiet
Or
quitting
just
when you're
having
an
a
NBA
nap at
coach.
home if you're doing it virtual, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
All
I
right. Well,
mean, I'm willing to be patient with. I guess the other thing too that kind of the underlying factor here is I think we'd all be willing to be more patient with Darko if there was a clear direction of, hey, we're in a rebuild now.
yeah, 1000%.
That again, going back to what my initial thoughts were with the Yacht trade. My initial thoughts when they got Darko was, oh, they're going for a rebuild.
Yeah.
And I was like, here we go. Here's, we're going to get the Pascal trade or, whatever. And, you're going to have this rookie head coach and it's going to take some time and it is what it is. But now, because you've kind of gone in the middle and you still haven't picked a direction, on the one end, you are going to get criticized for not, making winning decisions. And then you're also like, oh, okay, well, the development's not really happening either. And so, yeah, I think that's an underlying part of it too, where if it was clearly, hey, you are in a rebuild, it's a lot easier to kind of live with some of the stuff we've seen with Darko.
When Darko was first hired and they had that press conference outside and they gave the media free ice cream.
Yes.
And they were like, this guy can do it all. If we want to rebuild, if we're headed to the playoffs, no matter what direction we go in, Darko can do it. Darko's our guy. And you're sitting there eating ice cream as this is being said to you. Were you a believer?
No.
Even with the Haagen-Dazs. Even with the Haagen-Dazs, you were not convinced in that moment.
No, I was not. I mean, obviously he does have like really good coaching experience and he's been an assistant coach at the highest level. Like, I just think generally, even like Nick Nurse coming in as a rookie NBA head coach was different because he had been a head coach with the G League and won there. He had been a head coach in Europe and won there. And so there was like this winning pedigree to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't really seen that with Darko. And yeah, I just feel like there's mistakes being made that I could live with if this team was in a full rebuild. And part of the rebuild is this head coach that's kind of raw and is going to need some time.
Yeah.
But as long as you are in this position where you have Pascal and Scotty, it's like, okay, well, maximize them, like play better. And that's where, it's in conflict and none of it really makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's very fair. I mean, I remember, I'm paraphrasing because this was a while ago, but there was like was it an interview or was I reading it about Nick Nurse? And he was like, you know, you need as much head coaching experience as possible because you need experience being the guy who addresses the team, and you need experience being the one who's held accountable. And that really matters over time, when that's like probably the biggest difference between being an assistant and being a head coach, is like you are the one. And I feel like that does, like, we have seen like people who have been assistants for a long time struggle with that. Like Adrian Griffin with the Bucks right now is a
Yeah.
really great example of that, right? Like he was a beloved assistant coach for many, many years, and he's struggling to be that one who addresses the team and getting this sort of buy-in because he hasn't done that before. So I think that's like, you know, Nick Nurse kind of in his weird, you know, squirrely way realized that and was able to bring that here, and he knew how to do that. Which is why that's been very effective. And obviously he's doing well now in Philly. So yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said for that. And, you know, when you know you're in a rebuild, it's easier to watch a losing team because you don't have expectations of them. And then you can just appreciate the growth, and then you're there for the ride.
Yeah, 100%. 1000%. I think the lack of clarity is the main thing that's behind the angst that a lot of Raptors fans are feeling. And the sooner we have that clarity, the sooner we can, you know, at least direct that angst in the right way. Because it's like, again, it all just comes back to, are we trying to win? Are we rebuilding? Like, what is the goal here? And sitting at 11-16, the season going sideways, not feeling like you have a coach that can maximize the group, it's not great.
I want you there, Vivek. I want you there in that press room, trade deadline day. And I want you asking Masai all the tough questions.
Hey, if they'll let me in, I'll gladly ask.
And we need you, Vivek. We need you. Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining me this week, as always. Vivek, let us know what you're up to and where our listeners can find you on the internets.
Yeah, first off, thanks so much for having me, Cathryn. This was a blast. And you can find me on Twitter at Vivek M. Jacob. And I will have a couple pieces out for Sportsnet shortly. One will be just getting a look at, you know, who the big contenders for the individual awards are, whether it's MVP or most improved or whatever. And then another one is like a Christmas wish list for each NBA team. And so, and so you can look forward to that over the coming days. Yeah, and I think that's everything. To all the RR followers, listeners, subscribers, happy holidays.
Yes. Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you so much for listening again. Thank you for watching on YouTube. I believe I will have an episode next week to recap the Christmas games and all that fun stuff. So I will see you again right before the new year. Enjoy your Christmas for those who celebrate, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.